So let's look at that. I want you to see where we're at right now. Let's see where we're at. We are getting really close. We only have 10 pages left with this volume. In fact, less. And we'll be going to the 9th volume from Tafseer al-Qurtubi, inshallah. Let's look at the ayah that we left off on. ولو أننا نزلنا إليهم الملائكة وكلمهم الموتى وحشرنا عليهم كل شيء قبلا ما كانوا ليؤمنوا إلا أن يشاء الله ولكن أكثرهم يجهلون. This is basically, well, yesterday we were doing this ayah. ونقلب أفئدتهم وأبصارهم كما لم يؤمنوا به أول مرة ونذرهم في طغيانهم يعمهون. Let's see where we're at. Let's first, like we always do, first, get back to the idea for the ayat and then continue from there. So the idea is that they had wanted to claim that there wasn't any strong, formidable evidence that the Prophet ﷺ had presented and it to basically prove Tawheed. So what did they want to say? They wanted to say, well, you don't have any evidence, you don't have any miracles, wanted to undermine every single miracle that was presented to them, wanted to undermine every single evidence that was presented to them. And then in order to basically say, well, yeah, you don't have any evidence, and therefore we'll only accept one type of evidence, which is if you were to flip the mountain Safa into gold. And certainly they weren't necessarily seeking to believe, but they were seeking to somehow ridicule and somehow bring about a sort of defeat, a sort and a way of trying to undermine and somehow speak of the evidence that the Prophet ﷺ had presented in the Quran, that it does not have any strong evidence to prove of anything. Therefore, we would only accept one type of evidence, which is if you were to do what we tell you. And we said that this was a way to drag, and it contained within it the inference that what you had presented is not whatsoever of any containing any evidence or containing any meaning, and therefore we would want you to submit to our request, and that was the only way. But certainly that was a way to drag the Prophet ﷺ to basically thinking that if he were to show another type of miracle, that they were going to believe. He did attempt to make the dua, but then Jibril alayhi salam told him that if that miracle basically does happen, one, they would still not believe. Two, that would be the end of giving them the chance and the opportunity to repent. Okay, so that's when, of course, the Prophet ﷺ decided that he didn't want to make the dua to submit to their request, but it was basically this ayah that was revealed, because they had made وَأَقْسَمُوا بِاللَّهِ جَهْدَ أَيْمَانِهِمْ, they were making oaths to the Prophet ﷺ, to the Muslims, if only you had given us this miracle that we're asking for, we would succumb to your request and basically become believers. وَمَا يَشْعُرُكُمْ أَنَّهَا إِذَا جَاءَتْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. And they would not give you any sign. You wouldn't recognize that it was nothing but rather a way to manipulate you, that they would be believers. They were just using it as a way to manipulate. But the truth of the matter, belief does not happen by, yes, I saw something, but belief also needs a number of different contributions to basically happen to make the change within their heart, which involves, number one, how they're living their life. Is it based on justice? Is it transgressing limit after limit? So we were basically focusing on that one, and we said that a person's behavior, if they're involved, let's say, in crime, they're involved in probably engaging in haram behaviors, they're involved in different forms, whether it's going to be probably killing, or probably maybe manipulating, lying, or probably zina, or probably drinking, or probably all of these muharramat. It will slow down the process of how their heart would open up to faith or close to faith, whether this person was Muslim or whether this person was not Muslim. At the end, the behavior that a person does has a direct relationship in how our heart may open, may embrace, or may reject faith. And that's why the ayah was basically letting us know that even if the angels, and even if the dead, and even if we were to bring about all these different miracles right before their eyes, whether it's qubula or qibala, that at the end they will not believe. So number one, whether this is talking about, we said, some scholars said that this was that this portion of it, ولو أننا نزلنا إليهم الملائكة وكلمهم الموتى, etc., even if that happens, and in the end is that they would not believe. So in other words, what really had contributed to their closed heart is what they had already what they had already done, what they had already committed. If a person would engage in, let's say, good behavior, you may not control the iman and the khushu' in your heart. You don't control the khushu', but you do control your behavior. If you control a good behavior, that will contribute in khushu' in your heart. According to the ayat, just like when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيَعْلِمْكُمُ اللَّهُ. Well, this isn't just involving, your behavior is not just going to have a direct impact on your heart and your spirituality. But according to this ayah, it also tells you your submission in the right behavior has a direct relationship with even your intelligence. Yes, your intelligence. And that's why, remember when he said, شكوت إلى وكيع سوء حفظي فأرشدني إلى ترك المعاصي وأخبرني بأن العلم نور ونور الله لا يهدى لعاصي. Said, I complained to Waki'a, that is his sheikh, that he was having trouble memorizing. And he said, فأرشدني إلى ترك المعاصي. He guided me to leaving sin and told me that sin, or أخبرني بأن العلم نور, and he told me that ilm is light, and the gift of light is not granted to a person that is a sinner. So what are we supposed to be looking at here? That the way your mind processes things, the way your heart processes things, the way your spirituality processes things, the way your body processes things, is all related to what you do in behavior. We already know that the way your heart functions, hey, you do more exercise, your heart is going to be better. And guess what? Right now, we're even seeing studies tell us that people that would do more exercise would have a less chance of getting dementia, and less chance of getting Alzheimer's, and all these different things. We're saying, oh, so therefore your body basically has a direct relationship with what's happening in your brains and your brain health and your heart health and even your kidneys, your livers, etc., all of these different things. Well, Islam wants to take you a mile farther and say, no, the way that you would engage in behavior involves not only your brain health and your heart health and kidney and liver and pancreas and all of that, but it also involves the health, your behavior, your eyes, your ears, and what all of that you would engage in behavior involves the way that you would relate with your spirituality, with your khushu', with your mental health. And this is extremely important. With your mental health. Keep that one in mind. Because right now, like never before, we should see that the existence and the availability of different materialistic things, it's supposed to tell us that, hey, this is supposed to make us happier. But we're seeing that it's actually making people sadder and not happier. What's the evidence? We're seeing the rise of mental health issues. We're seeing the rise of depression, the rise of anxiety, and all of that. Why? Even though we always thought that the scarcity of material things or materialistic things and matter, that's what we need. We thought that if we were to end hunger, if we were to end the lack and the scarcity of clothes and the scarcity of matter, the scarcity of housing, the scarcity of these things, and we make more in a this abundance basically be available, that we would make happier human beings. So now, like never before, we have more food than ever before. We have more basically resources, but then we have the least in mental health compared to what in history we had seen ever human beings be in terms of their mental health. We have the worst mental health. We have the highest ever level of violence, the level of crime, and the level of suicide, the level of this. Why? Because it is to tell us that richness is not the richness and the abundance of matter, but it's in the richness and the abundance of within. It's within that makes the change in the difference. إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم. You want to change your status, you want to change your situation, حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. It's your nafs that makes the difference. Your nafs. You want to be rich. It's not an issue of being rich in having higher numbers in money, but it's rich in your akhlaq. It's rich in your relationship with Allah. It's rich in how you have the values, and it's rich in how you live with your relationship with your own self. It's redirecting and redefining all these different things that we had seen within of course the world throughout history. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says redefine things, and that's what the Quran is telling us. Redefine the meanings of what it means to be a person of value, what it means to be a person of justice. Redefine the centricity of things, and you'll see the difference. Okay, وَلَوْ أَنَّنَا نَزَّلْنَا إِلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةَ. So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَلَكِنَّ, so the ayah before it, what was it saying? وَنَذَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. What closed up? Why, if they were to see, and this is نُقَلِّبُ أَفْئِدَتَهُمْ وَأَبْصَارَهُم. Is this talking about on Judgment Day? Or is this talking about during this life? We talked about that yesterday. But why was that the situation? Because in dunya, نَذَرُهُمْ فِي طُغْيَانِهِمْ يَعْمَهُونَ. They were left to make their own choices. What were their own choices? Their own choices were basically to live in طغيان, in transgressing the limits. What limits? The limits that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had set, the principles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had set as the borders to defining justice, to defining what's right. And then, يَعْمَهُونَ, they became blinded and could not even see things. And then in the other one, وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَهُمْ يَجْهَلُونَ, but they lived, and most of them were actually living in al-jahl. What is al-jahl? Al-jahl, let's look into this one. When you see al-jahl, let's see, the sister is saying غضب, ظلم, أهواء, ظلم, أهواء, كبر, جاهلية. So al-ghadab is different because al-ghadab involves not controlling your emotions. So the person is agitated. This extreme agitation involves perhaps maybe verbal, let's say verbal behavior that goes beyond the limit. And by the way, every single khuluq, there it goes into think of it as a ladder. When you look at al-ghadab, the opposite of al-ghadab is containment. Why? Because al-ghadab or anger is involving an extreme level of emotional imbalance, whether it's verbally screaming, yelling, or whether it's physically hitting and attacking, or whether it's on the person's emotions basically going red, and you could see the person right there basically getting changing even in their expression. But al-ghadab is more of the emotional piece of it and how far it's going. Al-dhulm is different because al-dhulm is to oppress somebody. In other words, to go beyond the limits and the borders of people's rights. Does it have to be people? No. It can be also of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rights. Tawheed, for example. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called the shirk is a form of أَظْلُمَ مَنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ كَذِبًا. There's nothing worse than anybody creating and transgressing the limit beyond Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and basically claiming in creating blasphemy on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's dhulm, transgressing the limit. Il-hawa, which is the plural of ahwa, since you're writing that one right there. Il-hawa is different. Il-hawa is desire. Il-hawa is desire. Like, what are we talking about desire? Whether it's desire for food, desire for power, desire for fame, desire for... It's quite interesting. I was listening to al-Ghazali, Dhamm al-Kibr. I think that was that book. I think it was. I was listening to it as an audio book, and it's available on YouTube. Anyhow, and he was talking about something, rather interesting. He said that for a person that is living in piety, okay, that's living in piety, they don't get attracted to sin anymore. What does that look like? So you talk to a person that's been living in religious relationship, zina doesn't even attract them. That doesn't even cross their mind. Drinking doesn't even cross their mind. Drugs doesn't even cross their mind. Okay, does not even cross their mind. But something else, shaitan comes in order to find a different method to seduce the salihin. And he was saying to seduce them by making them feel good about what they are doing in terms of salah. So let's say they're memorizing Quran. Look at you. You're doing such a great job. People are praising you. You deserve all the praise. You're even better than XYZ. You're your beautiful voice is better than that person. His voice is so ugly, or whatever it is. Okay. All right. So what happens is that shaitan will come in by letting you see the good thing that you had done. Oh, you're so good to your parents. You're so good to your parents. You know, they should be so thankful to have you. So what does shaitan do? Now shaitan comes in from the angle of you being better than others, you being worthy of praise. And then you start loving the praise, and then praise becomes the center, the new center that shaitan plays on your sincerity through, which is by letting you think of yourself as worthy of praise and therefore better than others. And therefore a new center starts to emerge. And this center would be from the center of having Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be in the center of your ubudiyyah to a new center of ubudiyyah, which is trying to bring about people's satisfaction. People's satisfaction. Al-ujb is right. It's, well, self-amazement. That's right. And pride as well. Al-jahiliyyah is different. Because jahiliyyah can involve, you know, it's like a bigger, I would say a bigger plate, because jahila can mean to be ignorant of something. Jahila can mean to be ignorant of something, and to be ignorant can sometimes involve, in Lugha al-Arabiyyah, can sometimes involve not only in terms of, you know, lacking knowledge, but can also involve the implication that this person is showing in terms of behavior. In terms of behavior, that this person is jahil, to mean that they are behaving in a way that as if they are ignorant of the implication of their behavior with what this is leading them to. And that's why if you look at Islam in the Quran, it doesn't talk about dhaka, about intelligence. It doesn't talk about intelligence. It doesn't talk about IQ, doesn't talk about that as the big thing. No. Islam considers that what really matters is rushd, maturity. Let's keep that one in mind. Rushd. There's no maturity according to the Quran unless the person has the vision in place. Like what? He said, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ لَوْ يُطِيعُكُمْ فِي كَثِيرٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْرِ. Well, where's that? What surah is that? That's Surah Al-Hashr. So to know that, let's go to Surah Al-Hashr for a bit. Remember, this is page 150. Let's go to Surah Al-Hashr for a bit, right? It's going to be around here. Let's see, being really interesting. Oh, man. No, it wasn't Surah Al-Hashr. Surah Al-Hashr, yes, it is. I was actually on it, and then I flipped it. Okay. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ لَوْ يُطِيعُكُمْ فِي كَثِيرٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْرِ. No, that was supposed to be Surah Al-Hujurat. Surah Al-Hujurat, here we go. We're going to find it in Surah Al-Hujurat. Am I on the right page? No, Surah Al-Hujurat is this way. Yeah, it's right before Surah Al-Fatiha. Okay, here we go. And what do we got? Here's Al-Hujurat. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. Here we go. Is it right there? Yeah, okay. And here we go. There we go. This is it. وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم ولكن الله حبب إليكم الإيمان وزينه في قلوبكم وكره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان أولئك هم الراشدون. This is actually a key ayah. Let's look at it and just kind of scrutinize it for a bit. What is it saying? وَاعْلَمُوا. In other words, it's giving you now the definition. You're a student, and here's the lesson to learn. The lesson to learn. Know that the Prophet ﷺ is basically amongst you. In other words, take your ilm from him. Take your ilm from al-wahy, because jahl is going to be, let's say, the counterpart of rushd. That's why I'm getting into jahl and rushd. In order to understand jahl, you got to understand rushd. Okay, let's say. So the Prophet, the ayah is basically saying, well, the Prophet is amongst you, therefore he's the resource to help you define things. To help you define things, whether through al-wahy, al-Quran, or whether it is through sunnah. لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم. If he were to obey you in many of your recommendations and your suggestions, then things would actually make things harder. What is the inference? Well, the inference is that if you think your opinion is going to be somehow, your suggestion is going to be somehow a better option, without you realizing, you're just manipulating yourself. وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ. But the Lord Almighty had made faith beautiful to you. Wait a minute. So rushd involves love. Yes, rushd involves love. Wait a minute. Love, did you just say love? Yes. Where is love supposed to process in? Love processes in your heart. How can I let love process in the heart? So he said, al-Iman. So how can I have that process there? Oh, certainly, وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. In order to let faith process in your heart, you basically get to كَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. That's how you do it. Stay away from kufr, disbelief. Stay away from fusuq, public engagement in sin. Yeah, you might get some of those that are around you maybe laughing at your stupid jokes or silly jokes, and some might actually think your jokes are funny. And you're probably liking that, hey, I'm becoming popular by making these silly jokes. Guess what's going to happen? That's fisq. Al-fisq is involving others and making your sin public and engaging in major sin and being determined, and without that person realizing that they're actually now having the pride of committing that sin. Al-Isyan is the sin. Sin itself, whether in private or whether in public, sin. All right? So when you look at rushd is basically the opposite of jahiliyyah. Therefore, if I were to define jahiliyyah or jahl, al-jahl would be, let's look into the meanings and then we'll know what jahl would be. Okay, al-jahl would be any form of sin, any form of fisq, any form of kufr is jahl. Number two, if the person is not having faith beautified in their hearts or even loving faith, they're at the brick and the threshold of jahl. So how do I grow in my rushd, in my maturity? Maturity involves that you recognize that the implication of your behavior and where it's taking you is that you recognize that it's a fadlan min Allahi wa ni'mah, that it's a fadlan min Allah, that it's basically from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's the best blessing that you would get. And that's why the ayah continues about طَائِفَةً مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ اقْتَتَلُوا فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَهُمْ. They could be mu'mineen, but they would be involving in a form of jahl, and probably transgress the limit upon one another. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, well, the other alternative to the jahl is al-adl, is justice. Inna Allah yuhibbul muqsitin. All right. So now that we speak about the different terms, because the sister brought them up, and what's the What was the page? Was it 499? Is that what we said? Oh dear. What was the page? We lost the page. What was the page? Oh dear. Oh no. Hold on. We're going to get there. Don't worry. We're going to find the page. Reload the site. Okay. While it's reloading, we're going to find it, inshallah. Okay, we're going to find our page, right? Surah Al'ana'am, and we were doing ayah 109. Okay, there we go. We're going to get there, inshallah. Where is it? There we go. No one told me to stop. Okay, here we go. Okay, ولو أننا نزلنا إليهم الملائكة وكلمهم الموتى وحشرنا عليهم كل شيء قبلا ما كانوا ليؤمنوا إلا أن يشاء الله ولكن أكثرهم يجهلون. So that's the jahl in putting in all the different number of things that will that will affect a person's faith. Let's see. The sister is saying, what's the difference between rushd and hidayah? Hidayah is basically finding guidance or guidance itself. Rushd is being committed to al-hidayah. Rushd is being committed to al-hidayah. So a person can find guidance, but they would not be considered as in a place of rushd unless they're committed to guidance. حبب إليكم الإيمان. They love faith. They love going to the masjid. They love wearing hijab. They love reading Quran. They love listening to the dars, for example. They love it. They enjoy it. You don't even need to drag them because they enjoy it. That's a sign you're a mu'min. And then what? زينه في قلوبكم. زينه في قلوبكم. It's like in their heart, it's beautified to them. They just enjoy it to the point that that's the greatest thing that they would find entertainment in. زينه في قلوبكم. You tell them, what would you want to do? Oh, I'm just going to go read Quran. Why? Let's go have fun. Yeah, I'm actually finding my entertainment in reading Quran. زينه في قلوبكم. And what else? كره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان. Come and let's do something haram. No, they would just hate it. It becomes their instinct to, no, I don't want to do something haram. Hey, no one's watching. No one's doing this. No one can see you. I won't tell your mom, etc. All of that. No, it doesn't make a difference. They don't even engage. They don't even find any fun or any entertainment in al-fusuq, in doing fisq, in doing asyan. Al-fisq is removing the peel off the fruit. Remember? Removing the peel off the fruit. That's al-fisq. But al-fisq, that's literally what it means. But in terms of what it means in the Quran, it's not talking about fruits and removing peels, but this is talking about that if a person removes Sharia out of their life, that makes them more susceptible to rotting. If you don't wear Sharia, لباس التقوى ذلك خير. لباس التقوى. How do you تلبس تقوى? Do you actually wear taqwa? Yes, you do wear taqwa. How do you wear? I mean, not literally, but metaphorically. لباس التقوى ذلك خير. It's taqwa in itself. It guards you. It guards you and protects you from rotting. When you practice taqwa, it basically guards you and gives you hayba. Gives you hayba. Al-mu'min yahabuhu kulla shay. It gives you honor. When you practice taqwa, people see in you commitment and strength And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even describes the Salihin. He said, وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا. They don't change. They stay committed to the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا بَدَّلُوا تَبْدِيلًا is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described them. So when you look at al-rushd and al-hidayah, commitment is in al-rushd. And even when كره إليكم الكفر والفسوق والعصيان, and even sin, it's not that they don't want to do it because they're afraid of the consequence alone. No. They went past that. They would hate to engage in sin. They don't enjoy it. That takes a lot of commitment to get there. Sin, I don't even find any joy in it. It's not something that attracts me whatsoever. I'm not talking about myself personally. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, Rabbi, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us amongst those. But I'm talking about, I don't want you to think that here I'm praising myself. No, I'm actually talking about a mu'min and lisanu halihi in shit. All right? And what their situation and what they would be, or their description would be, that they wouldn't even find any entertainment, any joy in any sin. That's a salih person. Regardless of people watching, mama going to probably hold me accountable. No, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to engage in haram regardless of a consequence. Okay, let's see. So if you want rushd, maturity, you just need to commit to the good deeds. Good job. That's in a nutshell. Yes, you want to get to rushd, you need to get to good deeds. And you want to keep in mind that Islam regards that if a person is not rashid, and ladies, especially ladies, pay attention to this one, because rushd in men is more common and less common in women. Pay attention to this one. This is quite sad. Okay? Why so? Rushd also involves, if you were to look at that ayah that we said, وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ فِيكُمْ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ لَا يُطِيعُكُمْ فِي كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ لَعَنِتُّمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ حَبَّبَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْإِيمَانَ وَزَيَّنَهُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ وَكَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسْقَ. I'm not saying women cannot be rashid. But if you look at the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ, that's a very important hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, when he had said, رَأَيْتُكُنَّ أَكْثَرَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ, I had seen women be the most ones in hellfire. And why was that? The lady was asking. And the Prophet ﷺ said, تُكْثِرْنَ اللَّعْنَ وَتَكْفُرْنَ الْعَشِيرَ. Why تُكْثِرْنَ اللَّعْنَ? That's a form of lacking rushd. Why? Because you get carried away with your emotions. Emotional ignorance is one way to lead to behavioral jahl. Behavioral jahl involves emotional ignorance as well. So when he said, تُكْثِرْنَ اللَّعْنَ, what happens is that there's jahiliyyah. How? Because تُكْثِرْنَ اللَّعْنَ, always damning the things around, always complaining. That's al-la'n. All complaining about everything. Why? Because it considers that why are things not working out for me? It's quite interesting that boys' brains, you would see boys' brains always thinking of, okay, this is what I need, and they're more risky, and girls are not wanting to take a risk. Not saying no, but not wanting to take a risk, and then feel that entitlement, and especially during our day and age, and with feminism coming in, that entitlement mentality and that entitlement mindset had even fed this even more. And then takfurna al-ashir, and then deny any contribution that others did to you, because you would assume that you're entitled and people are supposed to be at your service. That's jahiliyyah. Now, having that being said, when you talk about al-a'mal al-salihah, emotional ignorance, when you say emotional ignorance, that's why tukthirna al-la'n wa takfurna al-ashir. Kufran al-ashir is emotional ignorance. How so? Because if you didn't recognize the contribution that your parents, your brothers, your family, your friends, and what they contributed in making you, and or even bringing in some contribution to help you, then that's a sign of emotional ignorance. That's why he said takfurna al-ashir. Kufran al-ashir is basically not being aware of the society that's around you. It's social ignorance. And the social ignorance is coming with emotional and bringing in emotional ignorance. If you're not recognizing the social contribution, that's why takfurna al-ashir. What is takfurn? Takfur means deny. Al-ashir means family. You deny family's contribution, basically. In other words, what is that? Social ignorance. Tukthirna al-la'n, it's emotional ignorance. You continuously just damning the things around you. And we know that studies tell us that women are more likely to get into depression and anxiety and all of that, whether it's a mindset or whether it's hormones or whether it's physical or the anatomy or whatever it is. At the end, that does not justify a certain behavior. Yes, certainly we can get an explanation to why we are susceptible to a certain behavior. But Islamically, that does not justify. You have to live up to the principle and not think of the principle changing to submit to your desires. You have to live up to the principle. That's the difference between the Islamic tazkiyah and the modern way of raising and modern way of discipline or therapy and whatever. Because Islam tells you, you have to involve this effort to live up to a rushd and not stay within your comfort zone. That's really dangerous, to live and stay within your comfort zone, but you would have to live up to not the comfort zone and maximizing your happiness, but you have to maximize your akhlaq. You have to maximize your rushd. You have to maximize your commitment. That's what Islam is wanting to teach us to do. Maximize your standards to be up to the standard of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and rushd. Let's see. Saying if someone does something bad, like leaving or delaying salah, and he knows himself, he did wrong, but he just didn't like it. He hates that, but he still does that and feels so much heaviness. Does this come under kurr? So yes and no. Can he still be a mu'min? If it is within, let's say, if it's within the parameter of salah and did not yet go outside of the timing for salah, this person is still a mu'min. Okay? But if you mean by mu'min to mean Muslim, then yes. But if we're speaking about a higher level of iman, even when it comes to iman, it's at different stages. So not all stages of iman are the same. You can have, let's say, a stage of iman taqwa. In a taqwa, no, they are seeking to be aqwa. They're seeking to be the best. Okay, that's why in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about the sabiqun and tells us about the ones that are mu'mineen, the ones, there are different levels. As-sabiqun, no, those are Those are way beyond. Why? Because they want to be the first to always do what's right. Those are sabiqun. Yet, if you were to look at other people, they're mu'mineen, all right? But not at the same level of a sabiqun. The ones that would want to be first. And then you would have other ones. And it's quite interesting how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, in Surah Al-Waqa. Let's go for there for a bit. Remember the page 150, that we won't have to search for it, right? Let's go for Surah Al-Waqa for a bit and just look into those. You know what we're supposed to be doing? So it's before Surah Al-Najm right there. There's Surah Al-Rahman. Here we go. Let's see, look at that one, right? Let's look at that one. Let's see. We got different levels. Okay, Ashabul Maymana. Let's look at that. Ashabul Maymana. And you got Ashabul Mash'ama. That's the general division. Okay, you got Ashabul Maymana, the ones that are on the right, and Ashabul Mash'ama. I want to look at the word Mash'ama. The word Mash'ama can also mean the ones to be in remorse. And Mash'ama could also mean min ash-shu'm, the ones to basically be in it's actually talking about their psychology. What psychology are they living in? Their psychology is to lose hope. They recognize there's no hope. So they're in a situation of mash'ama. But maymana, one, it can come from al-iman, and it could also come from al-yamin, from the right. Let's see. And then what else do we have? We got a sabiqun. Sabiqun, ulaika al-muqarrabun. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those. What is a sabiq? A sabiq is the person that comes in first. Whenever there's a good deed, I want to be the first to do it. Some people, subhanAllah, they always want to be the best in everything. In school, I want to be the best. In memorizing Quran, I want to be the best. They just want to always be the best. That's sabiqun as-sabiqun. And I want you to look at this one because it said ثُلَّةٌ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَقَلِيلٌ مِنَ الْآخِرِينَ. Why ثُلَّةٌ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ? Like there's a ثُلَّةٌ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ. There's a bigger number from the past nations that were sabiqun. They would always want to come first. But قَلِيلٌ مِنَ الْآخِرِينَ. Not very many from the end of time. So in other words, the nations before were actually better than the generations now. Just keep that one in mind. Every generation that passes, according to the hadith, every generation that passes, the generation before it was better. Or sorry, every generation that comes, the generation before it was better. This is in the hadith. In other words, to get your wisdom and to get your inspiration, look at the previous generations and not the generations that are living today. Go and talk to your grandmother and learn more and take the wisdom there. Because that generation was doing better than your generation. Talk to your grandmother. If you have a great-grandmother, good for you. Go and talk to your great-grandmother and see what their life was like. And you would see the simplicity, you would see the innocence in the older generation a lot more than the newer generation. This isn't necessarily, because if you were to look at the hadith as well, بدأ الإسلام غريبا وسيعود غريبا. Islam started out in a strange way and will come back in a strange way. All right. So yes, in certain ways they were better, but certainly if you were to talk to my great-grandfather, for example, they did not have their knowledge in Islam the way that we would have our knowledge in Islam. We have, right now, we're a lot at a better place than than 70 years ago or 80 years ago. We're at a way better place. in terms of at least knowledge. But in terms of innocence, we're way farther than them. They were so innocent and so down to earth, way more than how we are today. Okay, Hudayfa is saying, oh, my son is objecting. He said, sorry, Mom. I disagree. I said, why? And he's telling me World War II. That's tell you he was trying to object and say, well, if they were really nicer, why did they engage in World War II? That's a very good observation, very good objection. Fair enough. When we say as individuals that they were nicer, etc., we're talking about family. Certainly, the world didn't know about the different nations didn't know about each other the way they would know today. Okay. And that doesn't mean that by today, look at what's happening in Israel, okay, or what Israel's doing to Palestine, for example, or probably other countries. That doesn't mean that it just involves people being being aware of one another. But you're seeing right now, certainly when we're speaking about people hating one another in terms of countries that are opposition to one another is completely different. I'm talking about family being nicer. So brothers and sisters, they more supported each other. They can be angry at each other, but then they would still remember, oh, I gotta go and visit my sister during Eid. My sister needs me. I have to be in support of my brother. I have to support my brother. And sometimes it goes beyond the limits of supporting my brother, that I might even, even if he was wrong, I'm still going to support my brother. That's a jahiliyyah, okay? But it involved that I'm going to support my brother even if I would give my brother my own home, even if I would give my brother my own food. My brother is part of me. But right now, in our day and age, you could see that the relationship, the brother could be in a different country and they'll probably never talk to each other in probably years. And that's definitely not Islam. To bring about these close relations is basically what Islam teaches. And certainly the nations before were doing a way better job than today. Okay, let's say the other one. So what did we have right there? We basically got al-maymana, al-mash'ama, and al-sabiqun. What about al-maymana? So aren't al-maymana part of the mu'mineen and al-sabiqun? Yes, they are part of the mu'mineen, but al-sabiqun, they're even closer. They're at a higher level of iman. All right, so that's basically to answer your question, dear. I think we said it was 150. Am I right? MashaAllah, I still remembered it. Okay, let's continue right there. So, MashaAllah, I love these questions. MashaAllah. Good job. Okay, let's continue right there. وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَا لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ يُوحِي بَعْضُهُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ زُخْرُفَ الْقَوْلِ غُرُورًا. A couple of things to say about this ayah. Let's say, Ja'alna, wait a minute, so did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually make them? Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so when it says, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًا, or in another qira'ah, we said, in another qira'ah, did we say another qira'ah for this one? No, it was a different one. Okay. Okay, in another, okay, in this qira'ah at least, right there, عَدُوًا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ. So here's the question. Is it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them? Or is it that, no, there's a structure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created in this universe, and you fall within the structure. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you a blueprint of what the structure looks like. So in other words, when it comes to, remember, in وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ, that's the same thing right there. That recognize and know that in order to get to your heart, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that access that you would have to go through to get to your heart. يحول بين المرء وقلبه. In order for you to have your identity in place and your identity to be in your heart, etc. Well, that's basically going through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, therefore, recognizing جعلنا لكل نبي عدوا شياطين الإنس والجن, we're talking about a shayateen. The word shaitan comes from the root shatana. The root shatana. Remember, in Lugha Arabiya, learning the root of every single word is the core to learning the word in every addition. Remember this. الزيادة في المباني زيادة في المعاني. Every addition on مبنى الكلمة. What is مبنى الكلمة? Every single, or let's say 75% of the words in Lugha Arabiya go back to a 3-lettered root. So shaitan, the root is shatana. It's going to be a verb. Okay? And let's say yajhal, the root is jahila. Take it to the past tense of it. And that's the past tense of it is basically the root of it. The root, and every single time you add something onto the root, that addition would basically give me a meaning. So when you say shaytan, the root is shaytana. The ya is supposed to tell me what? Okay? The shaytan, it's supposed to tell me that there is an intrinsic thing in it. Keep that in mind. An intrinsic thing in it. Well, what does that mean? That shatana means to be distant. Shatana means to be distant. Shaitan, this person or this thing, whether it's a jinn or an ins, jinn, human or jinn, that they are intrinsically distant. Why am I saying intrinsically? I thought they had the instinct to be good. So they have the instinct, but guess what? Some people, their behavior, and that's taking us all the way back. Remember, أكثرهم يجهلون. Remember, طغيانهم يعمهون. That their actions had developed within them a complete close-up on the pure fitrah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not create evil, or pure evil at least. But those people, or these people, and these jinns, they were engaging in such cruelty, in such sin, that it made them intrinsically evil. They are evil to the core. They're evil to the core. They enjoy being evil. Remember the opposite of that. For al-mu'min, al-rashid, they enjoy doing what's good. But the person that is a shaitan, they're to the core, they give you a smile, but to the core, they're actually evil. They're concealing evil motives. That's a shaitan. That's a shaitan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, يوحي بعضهم إلى بعض. What is يوحي? الوحي basically means to give a hidden signal. So when you say يوحي بعضهم إلى بعض, what is this talking about? The ins and the jinn giving the ins, or is this talking about ins to ins and jinn to jinn? Both. In either way. Can be a jinn talking to a human, or can be an ins to inspire perhaps the jinn. Is it possible? Sure, it is. And what about ins to ins? Can those be shayateen as well? Yes, they can be shayateen as well. In fact, let's look at this hadith. Let's look at this hadith when the Prophet ﷺ had actually mentioned that every single, let's find it. Hold on, let's say the Prophet ﷺ, in this hadith, ما منكم من أحد إلا وقد وكل به قرينه من الجن. Every one of you, there is a qareen. What is al-qareen? Al-qareen is supposed to be something that matches you. What? So there's another, like Jinn Aisha that matches me? No. It's not that they're literally matching you in the jinn world. When you say qareen, in other words, there is another creature that would be living with you from al-jinn. They're just, wherever you go, they're going to be with you. Okay? So then, he was told, that is the Prophet ﷺ, وَلَا أَنْتَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, and even you, do you have a jinn too that is always accompanying you? And he said, وَلَا أَنَا. And even, in other words, even me, I would have a qareen. There would be a jinn that's accompanying me everywhere I go. إِلَّا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَعَانَنِي عَلَيْهِ فَأَسْلَمَ or فَأَسْلَمُ. What's the difference between فَأَسْلَمَ and فَأَسْلَمُ? فَلَا يَأْمُرَنِي إِلَّا بِخَيْرٍ. فَأَسْلَمَ, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had helped me. One, فَأَسْلَمَ, that he basically had become Muslim. فَأَسْلَمُ, that I would be protected from his evil inspiration. And he would order me only for what is good. Okay, so therefore, when you look at this one, when you see the word shaytan, that's in order to tell us that there is certainly, each and every single one of us has النفس الأمارة بالسوء وما أبرئ نفسي. Don't say that I'm here innocent of all of this. إن النفس لأمارة بالسوء. النفس orders the person to do what is wrong. That's what a nafs would do. Okay. Now, having that being said, when you look at here, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا شَيَاطِينَ الْإِنسِ وَالْجِنِّ. This isn't necessarily talking about only prophets, but this is also you as well. That you will have enemies. Wait a minute. So why talk about enemies? Because if you don't recognize who your true enemy is, that would simply mean you're going to be embracing everything out there. The people that don't have boundaries, they think that they're being inclusive, but you just become an easy target to others. You always have to have boundaries. Boundaries give you your identity. Your identity as a Muslim. كَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ. There are certain people you should not engage with these. كَرَّهَ إِلَيْكُمُ الْكُفْرَ وَالْفُسُوقَ وَالْعِصْيَانَ أُولَئِكَ هُمُ الرَّاشِدُونَ. People of sin, don't even engage with these people. Yes, make a boundary. Don't even get close to me. People of fusuq, they like to announce sin and all of that. Keep a boundary between you and these types of people. Why? Because your brain is going to get normalized. Is going to get normalized with all of this. And eventually, without you realizing, it will actually be your new identity. So what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asking you to do? These shayateen, keep a complete distance between you and these shayateen of the humans and the jinn, because they will be, it's either you keep a distance from them or they will distance you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's see this one. Shayateen al-ins wal-jinn. Is that supposed to be every prophet, or that they would have adu, that they would have an enemy? Or is that me as well, that I have to recognize my enemies and who they are? Or is that, what is the inference here? So if every prophet had enemies, and these prophets are supposed to be good people, meaning to have an enemy and to be an enemy who in ins and shayateen al-ins wal jinn is actually an honorable thing. Keep that one in mind. It's an honor to have, for example, Netanyahu see you as his enemy. It's an honor. It honors me that Netanyahu sees X or Y or Z, or it honors that person that he sees you. Why? Because he's such an evil person that he would only be an enemy to noble people. And therefore, if you want to know the good people, you got to locate the bad people. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, لِكُلِّ نَبِيٍّ عَدُوًّا. He's telling us, well, every single prophet, even though prophets are supposed to be really good people, they're the best people, they're infallible. He said, but wait a minute. Even these good people, they had enemies. And therefore, if you don't recognize your enemies and think that you're trying to be inclusive, and that by being inclusive to everyone, that you're being Mr. Nice Guy and you're being the good guy, no, you're not being the good guy. Even prophets had enemies. Prophets are enemies to shayateen al-ins wal jinn, to these shayateen. You have to be an enemy to evil. You have to be an enemy to injustice. You have to be an enemy to those that stand against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every single prophet, every single salih person, every single noble person, they recognize who their supporters are and who their enemies are. And not only until then do you really recognize your goal and how to support the mission and the legacy of Tawheed. Not only that. So that's why he said, well, the shayateen al-ins wal jinn, yuhi ba'duhum ila ba'd. They would also support one another. But what kind of support? They'll give a narrative. Why, he said, why did it say zukhruf al-qawl? What is zukhruf? Zukhruf is beautification. You know, when you put decorations and you make things look, appealing. That's zukhruf. Zakhrafa to shape, to make it appear appealing. When you make it appear appealing, it's to disguise all the different things that are actually within these words, in the reality of things. So they'll make, for example, drugs appealing by telling you that it gets you high or it gets you, feeling good, or probably getting right now feminism. Yeah, you're becoming independent. It's about freedom, your independence, etc. And not letting them recognize that what they had described as patriarchal or patriarchy and the patriarchal power and whatever it is, that's basically feminism trying to use this zukhruf al-qawl, these narratives to deceive and manipulate the masses of al-ins and al-jinn. So these narratives, a mu'min and the salihin, they would basically remove all these appealing words and this rhetoric and basically bring it to the crude reality for the masses to recognize. That's the key That's the key mission for a da'iyah. A da'iyah does one thing: take out all these decorations that are concealing the realities of what's hiding underneath. So they'll come and explain it, that, wait a minute, feminism is telling you about independence and freedom, but the truth of the matter is that it's actually making their control and these evil people's control over your body or over your mind or over all of this. It's not giving you independence. They're lying to you. This way of, yeah, if you're probably giving up on your deen, that you're looking cool, the truth of the matter is that you're looking like a fool. What is a mu'min doing? A mu'min is basically making sure that they recognize that this ghurur, what is a ghurur? Al-ghurur is to live in arrogance. So the rhetoric that they would pass there, it would feed a person's ego. What is an ego? An ego is basically to feel, you feel good about yourself, better than others, in power, in authority, and therefore, of course, that's what a bully would do. A bully would basically think that, hey, if I were to bully others, I would be in power. People would be afraid of me. I would basically get social empowerment, etc., and then I would be at that position of that position of acceptance. And then, of course, that's al-ghurur. Al-ghurur is to see things not based on the reality. And then al-ghurur would be an inner feeling of exaggerating your importance, making you think that you're the center, you're the important one, and therefore you are beyond others. That's al-ghurur. That's arrogance. That's exaggerating the ego. وَلَوْ شَاءَ رَبُّكَ مَا فَعَلُوا فَذَرْهُمْ وَمَا يَفْتَرُونَ. What were they living in? They were living in lies. Al-iftira. What is al-iftira? Al-iftira comes from the root fa'riya, which basically means to create a blasphemy, to lie. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said that the worst of the sins that one can do is lying. Why lying? Because the second that you lie, you would find yourself going from one sin to another and lying about it and concealing the reality of what you had committed. The worst sin one can commit is lying. Don't lie. Say the truth of things. And in fact, lying is a sign of being a coward. Only the people that are courageous will actually stand and say, this is the truth about it. If you are courageous, you would stand up and actually, if you know yourself to doing the right thing, then you shouldn't be afraid to say the truth and actually stand up for it. Don't be afraid. Say it. If you know you did the right thing. But what if I did the wrong thing? Fair enough. It depends who's asking you. If you did the wrong thing, then say, okay, don't lie. Because if, let's say, I'm not talking about war here. I'm talking about, let's say, your parents. They would ask you, did you do this? And you know you did the wrong thing. Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Now, what did you do? You actually did a better act than lying, because with lying, you just lost the trust. With lying, that will manipulate your brain that in the future, one way to get out of the mistake that I had committed is to just conceal the truth about it and just lie about it. It lets your brain basically get into this manipulation to lie and conceal it, and then later on letting your brain think that it's okay to commit the sin, just manipulate and deceive others and don't let others know about it. And then your brain will start, and your shaitan, yuhi ba'duhum ila ba'd. Then the shaitan will give that person further and further manipulation to distance them away from khair. And the farther, and the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يزال الرجل يكذب ويتحرى الكذب حتى يكتب عند الله كذابا. That a person, the man would lie, and they would يتحرى الكذب, and they would be so determined to find ways to make a lie until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would write and report them as liars. And that basically means Jahannam. So, نسأل الله سبحانه وتعالى العفو والعافية. We are done for today. I know we had a lot of different things. We're still not done right there, but inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow. Okay? We'll continue tomorrow because right now they're going to go to Salat al-Jumu'ah. So if there are questions really quick, we can inshallah answer those questions. We got Amri, Bishara, Latifa, Matina, Naveed, Umayya, Rishma, Zoom, and Tawaiba, and Qasatullah. Good job. Very, very proud of all of you. MashaAllah. Let's see, the question raised earlier about Hijran. You know, sorry, remind me tomorrow, inshallah. I think, yeah, because right now, Salat al-Jumu'ah, and I would have to basically end it right here for Salat al-Jumu'ah, but we'll inshallah continue tomorrow. So, subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.